rolling dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't go.
Hello, Matt, and good evening.
Howdy, Rob.
Good evening, this evening of evenings. Welcome to the House of the Rising Sun, this house of ill repute, this House of Leaves, house of...
The house that D20's built.
That's
Our
right.
house, Rob.
Tonight we're talking about house rules.
Our house, our rules.
That's right. And we've got a lot to say about this. You have a lot to say about this. There's a lot to say in general about this. So I think this is going to be a good one. First of all, hello. This is Dungeon Master of None.
I'm Dungeon Master Matt.
And I'm Dungeon Master Rob. And we have a soft-spoken evening record for you because we fucked up our last recording.
They don't need to know that.
The upside is, though, that now we have news of the next Dungeons and Dragons official book, which is...
I was texting Rob about this. I'm like, Rob, the book comes or is released tomorrow, but D&D always fucks it up, and one of the publishers always like puts a
leaks
picture on their site. And what do you know? Penguin Random House came through with us. We must have rolled high on their Random House tables because
That's
we
right.
got a picture of
Candlekeep Mysteries. That's all we know about it. There's a picture of...
It says on the cover, a collection of 17 short adventures.
Oh, I mean, we know that, but yeah.
Which is great. There
great.
needs to be more fucking short adventures and
Yeah.
a book that is 17 of them. If they're original, which
They
might
probably
be,
are. Or,
but they might
probably,
be reprints.
Probably
They might be a mix.
Mix and match, which is what they did with Yawning Portal. And no, wait, Yawning Portal was all...
Was all
reprints.
redone. Same with Ghosts of Saltmarsh. This is apparently the last book that Kate Welsh worked on, and I think when we open it up, if rumors are to be believed, you will see several other celebrity D&D personas in the pages writing adventures.
I'm very excited. I was kind of hoping for maybe something like this, but possibly in a different setting. But I like short adventures, so I'm excited to see what they have in this.
Yeah,
This is
honestly,
good.
given the choice between if it had to be an adventure, the two things I would want is lots of short adventures, and you couldn't pick a better thing than mystery for me, or a long adventure set in something that's not Forgotten Realms.
Mm-hmm. But let's talk about the topic du jour, Matt. Let's talk about house rules specifically. So, Matt, what is a house rule? What exactly are we talking about here?
So I think we want to set the parameters of our conversation and say that a house rule is basically an addition, a subtraction, an addendum, a change, patch notes to the official rules as written that you run at your table. And we want to distinguish this from like a table rule about etiquette to something that's like actually in the rules of the game.
There's some gray area and some overlap here, but yeah, it's distinct in the way that Matt described it, something adding, subtracting, or adjusting the game. Imagine
we
if
could
you
all
will...
talk for an hour about the proper way to roll dice. You got to shake it 3 times. It's got to land on the table.
Probably 15 minutes alone on what happens when a dice falls off the table. There are rules for that, but imagine if you are a gamer, perhaps of the video game variety. It's like a mod. It's not official content, but some of them can be quite good and sophisticated, and it's to make the game more one way or less one way or a better fit for your personal proclivities. Yeah.
And speaking of a way to make the game better, Dungeons & Dragons has had a long history of house rules because the original Dungeons & Dragons game came without a lot of rules, and they were like,
and a lot of the rules were bad. They're bad rules. They're
bad rules, or they're just missing. They're like, just refer to chainmail or like overland expeditions or whatever that book was called. And people were like, I'm not going to buy that shit. And so they made their own rules. and they often turned out to be better than anything TSR or WotC came up with and got folded into the game. Do you like having max hit points at first level? That was a house rule, a very popular one.
Do you like not rolling for stats unless you want to? Do you like that being one of many choices? Another house rule. The best example is, of course, the new alternate racial ability scores in Tasha's, something that people have been house ruling for ages in one way or another. I don't know that Wizards took directly anybody's rules, but the idea and the implementation is something that players have been doing for a long time.
My favorite is cyclical initiative, the initiative that is baked into the system by default right now, which is, we determine initiative at the beginning of whatever we're doing and go in that order so everyone knows what's coming every round. Didn't used to be that way for 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of what we like about D&D started out as a house rule, and that's good. That's it's advanced playtesting or something.
Yeah, I mean, we're the true innovators, the dungeon masters.
That's
it's
right.
all us.
We're on the front line. We're doing the work. We're laying down our lives and minds for the cause of D&D.
Rob's doing the work. Meanwhile, over winter break, I've been doing the great work. I've finally come up with a substance to transmute base metals into gold. So just keep doing your work. I'll stick with my great work.
Okay. Interestingly, fifth edition has done a lot with house rules, or has sort of muddied the waters. As you may be aware, certain things that most people play with or that they take for granted are technically optional or technically variant rules.
Right.
The obvious
collecting
ones,
all the money in the middle of the board when you land on free parking, right? That's a house rule.
The obvious one, of course, being feats, which are still in the book as a variant or optional rule, even though that's dumb. And
right, when we first got D&D Next, Wizards of the Coast sort of promised that this will be an incredibly modular system, right? And it would have basically all these dials that every table could turn to make it either a super crunchy game or more abstract, and that kind of got filed away by the end of the edition with just
the only dials that it shipped with were feats on, feats off, and grid on, grid off. Like they're
more like switches.
Yeah, there really wasn't any. If they had wanted to make it modular, they should have made it modular instead of whatever it is that they actually did, which was not very much.
Well, we have to bring this up because I think the thing that gets house ruled the most, which is maybe technically an optional rule in the Dungeon Master's Guide, is the idea of flanking, right? You got two people on the side of a creature. They get some kind of bonus to attack. There's no rules for flanking in the player's handbook. In the Dungeon Master's Guide, optional rule, players get advantage for flanking a monster.
Yeah, and so I was shocked to discover that that Matt uses this rule. That Matt employs
the great flanking debate.
Employs this rule. Well, as you know, the truth is though that I don't use this rule because I find that it makes it much too easy to get advantage in combat, and that it sort of makes players behave. It encourages them to behave in ways that don't really make sense in the moment. However, I think I ended up at this conclusion because I had players that deliberately abused flanking, and it slowed the game down. But Matt, you do use this optional rule.
I use it especially with new players just to encourage them, give them something to do. I see your point, right? Flanking as the optional rule got changed from additions to a minor bonus, like a +2 to hit, to advantage, which is usually like a +3 or a +5, depending on the target's AC.
It's mathematically a +5. Oh, right. Sorry.
It depends on the target number, right? But it can be as great as a +5, right?
Yeah, it's a substantial bonus. No, it's a substantial bonus. More than a +2 in almost every situation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they made it like easier to to get because opportunity attacks are less punishing, right?
Yeah,
It's
and this was
easier
the thing
to
that
avoid. So
this was the thing that I found that again, I know why opportunity attacks were removed or at least severely limited, but without them, players who were not built for dancing about the battlefield were doing a lot of dancing about the battlefield to end up on the other side of a baddie. And I found that it was slowing the game down and it was, too easily abused. That being said, I do think this is probably pretty good for new players, and especially if they're not entirely comfortable with their rogue or their fighter, this can be a big advantage. Now, one thing that you can do, speaking of house rules, let's get to our own house rules, is the idea of flanking is not a bad one. I think the way that it is implemented with advantage is less than optimal.
You're saying bring it back to like a +2 or a +1.
Something like that, right? This conflicts with the design philosophy of 5th edition, but yeah, you could just have it be a flat +2 like it used to be, which is still a pretty big advantage, but it's mathematically a bit easier to adjust for.
What about this? Just have a bunch of D6s, the most common and lowly of die, sitting around at the middle of your table for players who start flanking to grab, and they can add that to either hit, damage, or both. Right, depending on what you want to house rule. Oh, if you're flanking, you get a D6 extra damage.
I like that, and I haven't done the math on it, but just gut check. It seems fine. Seems not too game breaking. I think that
for average ACs, it's about the same.
Yeah,
honestly, actually, maybe the damage is. I would kind of lean towards the damage because you're like, oh, they're still hitting, right?
Yeah, I like the damage too. I am wondering if just throwing a D6 every time you're flanking wouldn't somehow crank the damage up too high. But also, I don't know. Monsters have a ton of hit points in 5th edition, so this is probably safer just adding flat damage for flanking than it is to add advantage.
So, Rob, I think you and I have reached across the aisle on the flanking debate. I can see your points, you can see mine, and nothing will get done. Yeah. I think this is a good approach to take for both politics and life. Is just meet in the middle at all times, right? That's what we've always stood for here at Dungeon Master of None.
Unlike some things, I don't actually feel particularly strongly about flanking one way or another, and my approach with most things in Dungeons and Dragons is that if it is frustrating and unfun, that I don't want to do it, and arguing is frustrating and unfun. So shall we move on?
And I think that's the good point for all of our house rules. It's like, let's try and bring up the pros and the cons, and if it works at your table, it works at your table.
Oh, yes.
Here are the things to be aware of. Here are the things that it will change, and if you knowing that, go in there with eyes wide open.
Matt and I are going to be very candid about our opinions, but we're going to try to present all of these house rules objectively so that you can make an informed decision. There are some, and I will tell you which ones, that I don't like, but that some players really love, and that could possibly fit well into your game, and if that's the kind of game you like to play, then more power to you. But we'll try to let you know what the potential pitfalls and upsides are, and then you can make your own decisions, because you know what, your house, your rules.
That's right. Rob and I over here chasing that noble dream by Peter Novak, an obscure reference to a historiography book that no one has read, where we will find the objective consensus version of Dungeons and Dragons. All right, Rob, I'm going to hit you with a first and minor house rule, which is, how many times have you, at your table, ignored group checks? You probably forgot they existed.
Yeah, I forgot they existed. I consistently forget that they exist.
Right. This is where if half the players pass, everyone succeeds. A simpler way to do this, just because people forget about it, is, let's say your characters are watching for enemies. There's someone who's at first watch, first in the line. They're stealthing into somewhere. There's someone who's stealthing, scouting the way. Whoever makes that first check, if they succeed, they grant the rest of the party advantage on their check. That way you don't just roll the entire party until someone fails and alerts the guards.
Yeah, I like this, and I think Well, I think using group checks is good, and I and other DMs need to remember that they exist. But also, anything you can do to reduce the sheer volume of rolls is good. And Pathfinder Second Edition has a lot of really cool rules about putting somebody at the front of the party, or making allowing them to make one check for everyone in certain circumstances. They're still fiddly. This doesn't exactly fix the problem, but I like that it sort of addresses the everybody rolls for stealth, and one, the paladin gets a 1.
Eventually, one person's going to fail if you make 6 rolls, right?
Right. And by the other token, this is a house rule that I do, that I use, that has upset my players from time to time, but I stand by it, and that's that I don't allow knowledge checks unless you are proficient in that knowledge skill. In that skill. So you can't. I don't like it when all 6 of my players, regardless of whether or not. Sorry, I jumped ahead. It was organic.
No, it's okay. I know what you're talking about. Right, yeah. No, here's the situation. The wizard's like, well, do I know anything about the Tanari demons? I'll make an Arcana check. And then they fail. And everyone else is like, oh, well, let's see if do I
know anything about Tanari?
I have a -1. Oh, look, I rolled a 19. I got a higher than the wizard who has expertise in the skill and a 4 intelligence bonus.
This bothers me immensely. And the truth is, if you use this rule, it does punish your players, right? It does limit some of their abilities. But frankly, I think that it's appropriate. It takes me out of the moment, and it feels frustrating, and it suddenly feels very gamey when everybody's just like throwing dice until they get high enough to know whatever it is that they want to know. So this is a house rule that you may or may not want to use, but for verisimilitude's sake, I tend to use it in most of my games.
Listen, knowledge skills are like the funkiest skills in the game. Like if you read their description, it's like, use this skill to recall lore about X. Like it's not doing anything. It's like, does your character already know something about this? And for these things, like I'm kind of with you, Rob, in that like I'm like, oh, do you have knowledge arcana? Do you have knowledge nature? Well, of course you know that this is this type of fae or something like that. And I might not even roll for a check because, knowledge skills just, ugh.
I tend to give, like, if they've got proficiency, I tend to give them some information no matter what they roll, and then extra if they roll well, because, I don't know, rolling to see how good your memory is feels like it doesn't feel fun, and it's potentially very frustrating if you roll badly. It's a bit like rolling to break down a door, and if your fighter or barbarian doesn't roll high, if they roll a 5 and they've got even if they got a monstrous strength bonus, right? Like +5, +6, but then the wizard rolls a 15. Well, the wizard breaks down the door. Like it's the question
is when to. The other question beside, I think your house rule is fine, but the other question is just when to roll. If there's no penalty for failure to breaking down the door. But the problem with knowledge checks is, right, it's just thinking. So there are very few situations where there's a penalty. I think another way to kind of allow this is maybe only one knowledge check per party per thing, and other players can help. Or if they're not proficient, you could make this into an opportunity to explore who their character is. Oh, you want to know about the courts of the winter and summer of the Feywild? How does your character know something about that? And if they can come up with an answer, you could give them kind of some limited information based on their experience.
Matt's suggestion of, sorry, you can only make one knowledge check, but anybody can help, I think is a better solution. It feels less like you're taking something away. So the party then has to put forward the person with the best chance of knowing something.
The other thing to think about, just last thing for this is, at least for me, if players are asking about something, I usually just give them most of the things that they want to know, with a high check being an extra detail and a low check being maybe one important detail missing. That's not maybe the best way to handle knowledge checks, but it's worked for me. Just because I'm like, I don't want to withhold information from my players.
Right.
Oh, they're actually interested in knowing something about my game world. Cool.
I mean, this is the problem with knowledge checks. I mean, one of the many problems with knowledge
Fuck
checks.
knowledge skills.
Fuck knowledge checks.
All right, we better move on before we
All
get
right,
angry.
here's another rule that I use that is sometimes controversial, but I stand by, and that's that I always ignore ammunition. You have as many bolts, sling bullets, or arrows as you want, and if you reach into your quiver, you can shoot your bow. I've seen the arguments against this, but I don't like to keep track of this. I don't want my players to feel like they have to keep track of it, and so you know what? You just have enough ammunition.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think 5e is different than other editions because it has at-will cantrips. Your wizard, your warlock can shoot as many ranged attacks as they want. Why punish your rogue and ranger in the same way? I mean, however, if you are running kind of a old school survival game, like it can be fun to track this, and I can understand the counter arguments because ranged attacks can be very powerful in certain situations.
Yeah. And you can, I can also see the argument for like if it's a low magic or survival type game, making the ranger like recover their arrows or something like that and making them keep track, but generally I don't run or play in those types of games, and so I tend to think this is just I just don't like needless bookkeeping. The thing is that if one of my players has 20 arrows, they could go, it's almost like inconceivable that they would go through a dungeon and not have arrows left over, and so making them keep track is just an annoyance,
Or if they have enough money, like, oh well, I ran out of arrows. Well, why wouldn't I have just bought extra arrows in town, or like arrow parts or something?
Right. Why don't I have like an extra quiver? Like I have 400 gold pieces. Why don't I have extra arrows? There are arguments against this, but I tend to just hand wave it.
It's like when video games got to the point where your character doesn't have ammunition anymore, they just reload, and you're like, oh, I guess that didn't really matter, did it?
Yeah, I mean that's what that's what they did in Mass Effect, and it was fine.
Every video game these days.
Yeah,
Counter-Strike's still a holdover. Still sticking with the old school. Here's a quick one from listener Dalton, who says this on Twitter in the same line. For dungeon equipment, so things like rope, grappling hooks, pythons, climbing equipment, lanterns, caltrops. Players just have a number of boxes on their character sheet of it's mystery Schrodinger's bag of dungeon equipment, and if they want something from the standard list, they say, oh, I reach into my pack and pull out rope. They mark off a tick on their boxes, and they now have rope on their character sheet. This is stolen from Dungeon World.
I like this. The thing is that D&D tried to fix this by giving everybody an adventurer's pack of some sort, which has almost everything that you need in it, but players don't always like look what's in there, and not every pack like has everything that you need. So I like,
and none of them have a 10-foot pole.
None of them have a 10-foot pole. I think that's by design, but you need a 10-foot pole. So. Yeah,
speaking of where you're going to put that, me too. Speaking of where you're going to put that 10-foot pole, what about encumbrance and tracking weight? This is, I think, one of the most ignored rules in D&D.
I have so much to keep track of, and I know that my players are not good about this, that I tend to never think about encumbrance until somebody tells me, well, I want to put all 10 halberds in, I want to strap them on my back, and I'm like, okay, you can't do that. Or like they're like, I want to take this gigantic, golden statue. And I'm like, okay, well,
you're gonna need to get a wagon or a Tinser's floating disc or something, buddy.
As long as it's not like an obvious like thing that they couldn't carry, or they're just like packing a bunch of stuff into their, their rucksack, I tend to just not bother with it. And most of the time, here's the thing: most of the time, it will not matter. I mean, most of the time players are not going to approach their encumbrance limit because it's very generous in 5th edition. Players can carry an awful lot of weight for an awful long way.
15 times strength or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not, because it doesn't usually come up, it's not really worth keeping track of. Now, again,
lots of old school revival games have made this into a more gamey mechanic of like, I've even seen one where like, here's a box on your character sheet. You can fit whatever you want into your pack into what you can write in this box. Cool, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's totally fine ways to do this. It's just the way that most games are written and designed. Tracking encumbrance is just a nuisance. And here's the thing. If it's realism that you're after, then we got to address the gold coin problem. And we will a little bit later. But like, gold is very heavy, right? So if you're suddenly concerned about the weight of everything in everybody's pack, you got to like, are your players carrying around all of their gold? Are they converting it into a lighter currency to like adventure with? Like, do they have to go?
Notes.
Yeah, are they getting banknotes? Does your realm have fiat currency?
Well, no, it's not fiat. It's backed by gold at some bank.
Right. Sorry. Wait.
No, actually, there's a great
just
business
like the Knights
model.
Templar. This is like
this is how they got their start.
We need a Templar guild for dungeon
adventurers.
They leave
actually,
their
Rob,
wealth.
you've talked me into tracking encumbrance and equipment at all times because it creates a great new system for adventuring, right? The people who sell wagons to adventurers to haul shit out of dungeons and who will write them promissory notes.
That's right.
In easy to carry paper.
That's right. Anyway, you can or cannot, like, you can choose to use encumbrance. I don't think it's a big deal. You're going to notice that most of the house rules that we use make the game faster, easier, and less of a nuisance. So I don't think it's going to affect gameplay most of the time. So if you're having your players meticulously track this, you're just wasting everybody's time. Unless
that's what the game is about. The game is about hauling things out of dungeons, which I have played in many fun games about precisely that. So, Rob, here's a big one that applies very specifically to 5th edition. 5th edition goes by the sort of idea that it's more fun to hit than to miss. True.
Mm-hmm.
But because of that, monsters have huge hit point pulls.
Yeah.
Like a fucking ogre has 60 hit points. A beholder has like 200. Like everything has a ton of fucking hit.
Has like 32 hit points. You know, it's like as soon
a
as your
captain has like 60. It's insane.
It's insane.
I cut monster hit points by a third to a half, depending on this. And you know, this is maybe not technically a house rule, because remember the hit point totals in the monster manual are the like average hit points, right? Monsters have hit dice.
Good point.
And they can have any hit point within the range of the low bounds of this and the high rounds. I just tend to give them something around the low bounds, just to speed things up usually.
Yeah. I don't have like a hard and fast rule like Matt does. I don't always have their hit points, but if you did, nothing bad would happen. And I would encourage, I mean, frankly, I'm serious. Nothing bad would happen if all of the hit point totals in 5th edition were cut in half. And this is a good thing to do to keep the game moving. It could maybe in some cases make your combats less dramatic, but I'm very much for this rule. I may systematize it the way that Matt does and just make it concrete. If
you give that thug minimum hit points, they have 15 hit points, which is 2 solid or 1 big hit. Perfect. Yep. See, that's for me what a thug means.
Right. And a thug is a CR1 creature, right?
1/2, Rob.
1/2. Yeah, that's the thing. Is it's like, you know, that thug is not going to threaten your party probably, but it'll take them a long time to knock it down, especially if there are 2 or 3 of them. And that's just a pain in the ass. Yeah.
Speaking of things that are not a pain in the ass, here's a tiny change that I love. Rob, I love ritual spells, and I think the most common ritual spell that your players will cast is Detect Magic. They always want to see if there's any little treasures
They want to know.
around.
They want to know.
They want to
wanna
know,
look for
and
magic.
they don't want to spend a spell slot. When my players cast Detect Magic as a ritual, instead of the player casting it, getting magic sight, whatever they, put the line of salt around, whatever area they detect magic on, anything with a magic aura glows with a pale octrine light or blue light or whatever color you want. And that way, everyone can investigate what's going on in this dungeon room.
I think that's a really nice change. It doesn't affect the way that the spell works. People,
If you're casting as a ritual, it's not in a high pressure situation anyway, right?
It lets other people be involved, and yeah, I like this. It's a nice, like, easy change. I'm for this.
I think I stole this from Labyrinth Lord, just to cite my sources.
One rule that is technically a house rule that I used for a long time because I thought it was an actual rule, and I got dinged by my players because they thought that I was favoring somebody. I don't know. So this rule, and I know the arguments against it, but I allow, and I have stopped using this, but I may go back to using it, but I allowed players to cast whatever spells they had actions for. So if they wanted to cast Fireball and then Healing Word, or they wanted to cast Cure Light Wounds and then Blessed Hammer,
Spiritual Weapon.
Spiritual Weapon. They could do that. I mean, you could do that. I still don't.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, a Cleric of Thor wouldn't call his spell Spiritual Weapon. He would call it Blessed Hammer.
Blessed Hammer. I'm thinking of the Diablo spell for some reason. Names escape me. The point is, there's a reason. I think this is the reason why I don't like this rule is because it's like not obvious or intuitive the way most 5th edition rules are. You have to look it up. To me, it's not like most things make sense, right? Like it's
right.
Most things in 5th edition, you're like, you can do this. This is this type of attack roll. This is this type of action. It's very, very simple. This, you have to actually read through the rules and to where it says if you cast 2 spells, one has to be a cantrip. So I understand the arguments against doing this.
And here are the arguments against doing this, which is, I mean, it's basically a check on spellcaster power, especially when you have adventuring days between long rests where there's only a couple rounds of combat. If you let your spellcasters pump as double the amount of resources into every turn, they will outshine your fighters and rogues.
Yeah. And that's
however,
true.
that will only happen occasionally, right? So maybe it's not.
And realistically, most adventuring days are short. I know this to be true as much as anybody, but in theory, if you are following the guidelines and have as many combats as you're supposed to, your casters are going to burn through their spells incredibly fast if they do this. That does not give them any extra spell slots. They will have a couple of Nova rounds and then be out. But there is a good argument against using this rule, so do so carefully.
I shan't be using it. Good day, sir.
Good day.
Another thing I shan't be using is, okay, we've talked about this a lot, Rob, is
but we got
critical. Here we go.
Here's the thing.
Here we go.
I know what Matt's going to say, but
gird yourself, Rob.
The thing is, sorry, go say what it is, and then we'll talk about it.
Critical fumbles or critical fumble tables.
Yeah. So this
extra consequences for rolling a 1.
This is something, and I don't get it, but there are lots of people who use this. There's tons of
the most
third-party
popular
materials.
House rule. People have made their fortunes on this.
It's just boggling to me. So yeah, it's just this idea that if you roll a 1, here's another table that you got to roll on to find out what other shitty thing happens to you.
And it's usually a really shitty thing.
It's usually not. It's pretty bad.
You start chittering like a squirrel. You tase yourself in the balls repeatedly and have a heart attack. It's something,
something like that,
something
right?
Only a fucking idiot would do.
And here's the thing. We have discussed this before, but there's an obvious reason why this sucks and it's bad. If you are a spellcaster in D&D, you need never roll a dice in combat. You can just make other people roll dice. You do not.
Yeah, that's
ever
why
have
spellcasters are smarter. That's why wizards are more intelligent than fighters.
There's no reason for you to ever make an attack roll. But God forbid, you're a fighter with 2 weapons and extra attack and
You're
second
pumping
wind.
out 4 of those bad boys around, and
And you know what? That's what you love to do. You just love to make attack rolls. That's fine. But this punishes you, right? It's already bad enough that you got to roll. But then you have a chance of like chopping your foot off or tasing yourself in the balls or like going unconscious.
stabbing
for
your
some-
ally, or I don't know. Yeah.
and you know, on top of just like being mechanically punishing, it just like it ruins the fantasy because how often is your highly trained, you know, elite adventurer warrior going to accidentally drop his axe on his foot? Probably never, but statistically 5% of the time, if you're using critical fumble tables, which is too many percents of the time, in my opinion. I do not like these.
I pulled up a random one. Let's see. Here are some possibilities. Slipped, had a panic attack.
Oh my God.
Broken bone.
I hate this so much.
Weapon thrown 30 feet.
So what? Like
self-inflicted wound.
You roll a 1 and your guy has like a, you know, a fit and like throws his weapon, you know, 30 feet across the battlefield. He just like, whoops. Just like it slips out of his hands and just like.
This is time to walk away from the table where you're like, I'm tying one of those leather Wii remote thongs around my hand so my DM stops making me throw my goddamn longsword into the next room. Listen, so there are also like critical hit tables, right? Those have some of the same problems. They slow the game down.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're rewarding players. You're also, again, rewarding players who roll the dice more.
I mean, critical hit tables are less problematic in my opinion. Again, they still kind of like slow the game down, and they can, depending on how the table is set up, like what's on it, it can be like really weirdly game breaking.
There are games that integrate critical hit tables into the actual game. Dungeons and Dragons is not one of them.
Yeah. I'm not as opposed to those, but again, they slow the game down, and certain randomness I'm okay with, but you know, I don't know. I haven't seen like a critical hit table that I wanted to use, so but that one
never
would
met a
probably
critical hit table he loved. Here's a sort of addendum to this rule. So I think most new dungeon masters don't realize that in the universal mechanic of 5th edition D&D, which is rolling a D20 and adding some shit to it, there are in fact 3 types of rolls, right? There are attack rolls, there are ability checks, and there are saving throws. Only on attack rolls in the rules are natural 1s on the dice and natural 20s on the dice, automatic failures or automatic successes. However, I feel like many people house rule that on either saving throws or ability checks or both, natural 1s and 20s are also automatic successes or failures.
Yeah, this is not intended to be a house rule, but it is something that a lot of people end up. I mean, look, I don't want to get
house rule by misunderstanding.
I don't want to
that
give
maybe
DMs a
is
hard
then
time
later embraced
because, you know, I also, like I have mentioned, got rules wrong. So, you know, you're not alone in misinterpreting the rules. Just know that maybe they're not like that, and periodically return to the source to double check. This is a lesson for me as well.
Yeah, I think there's not a huge problem with making this so, but remember the purpose behind this is combat is crazy and anyone can hit anyone or anyone can miss anyone. You know, it can be kind of punishing that your fighter or a barbarian with like a plus 11 to Constitution gets poisoned by a tiny little thing or something like that. It's fine though. I don't use these, but
okay, Matt,
I'm ready.
You've got
My
a big one
body's
for
ready.
us. You got a big one for us. I want. It was. You brought this to the table, so I want to hear it from you.
Okay. Here's a great idea I picked up online, which makes a lot of sense to me as a historian, which is you take all the prices in the player's handbook: equipment, armor, weapons. You change that little G to an S. You change every price from being in gold to being in silver. You also change players' starting money from gold to silver, and boom, your economy is on the silver standard.
That's right. When I heard this, it just like it blew my mind. I had not even considered this, but and I was initially
Rob
like, oh,
is
that won't
the
work.
last registered voter who's a member of the People's Party.
That's
the
right. That's right.
Populists.
Your party shall not be crucified upon a cross of gold, Matt. We will see the silver standard returned to America. It's only a matter of time.
We just need more specie. We need more currency to help out our beautiful farmers.
That's right. That's right. The beautiful farmers need. That's right.
Also, I'm not making fun of it. Before anyone drags me, I'm not making fun of the populists. They actually ruled.
No, they were awesome.
and
However,
they're like, hey, why don't we give women the vote? Why don't
the populists
we
were awesome.
fucking nationalize the railroads?
William Jennings Bryan was a cool dude. They just also had not even that silver standard was goofy. It's just like they did have some goofy thoughts in addition to nationalize shit and give women the vote. But also it's fun to talk about. Anyway, this is such a good idea. It makes things make a lot more sense. It adds a little bit of like shine and excitement to like when your players do get something that's made out of gold or get some like gold coins. It also doesn't like
conforms a little bit more accurately to like prices a long time ago in vaguely the European era.
Yeah, because you have to. I mean, you'll read in any book like when how much does a stay at an inn cost, and it's like, well, actually, it's 10 copper whatevers, and so you're having to break your gold down into like a bunch of different denominations in the first place. But would it be easier just to have one silver mark or something like that, or 1 pound sterling, or one halfpenny?
Yes, you should definitely keep things in denominations of tin. And again, this doesn't really matter, right? Obviously, there's platinum beyond gold that you can do the same thing with. So the downside of this one is it doesn't fucking matter. I just like it.
I like it too. It's not important at all. You have to change some things. If your players ask how many gold pieces something costs, you're like, silver pieces. But it doesn't matter, but it's fun. I'm for this. We're nerd historians. Matt and I both studied, world systems history, and so we learned about, how actually who were the authors? China, buying up silver.
Flynn and Gutierrez basically discovered, the bimetallic ratio like of exchange in China was like 1-5, and in Europe it was like 1-15. And they're like, the Europeans are like, oh, holy shit, we got to get some silver to China. Oh boy.
Yeah. It actually turns out that like all of like modern history was driven by, the Spaniards shoveling silver out of Potosi and then shipping it across,
Don't forget Zacatecas.
Sorry.
Everyone's always forgetting about Mexico just because Potosi had even more silver.
But it's historically interesting. It also, silver isn't as heavy as gold, so then your players could carry it around potentially without you having to wonder, well, where are they putting, 500 gold pieces? Like that's, several hundred pounds. Anyway,
I once met one of these authors at a conference, and he talked to me for about an hour about like silverware and silver disappearage, which apparently like silver coins after like 100 years, they like start to rub away into nothing from just finger oils. I'm like, this is kind of fascinating, but also I gotta pee.
It's natural deflation. It's beautiful. It's perfect. This is what the Bitcoin people are always talking about. It's a deflationary currency, except it's silver and not fake internet money. Anyway, sorry.
Silver, baby.
This has nothing to do with house rules.
Anyway, how about giving your players a free feat at first level?
We've already talked about this. I love it. I would challenge anybody to tell me why this is bad. I guess
it's too complicated for new players.
It's too complicated for new players. However, I like it. I give this to all of my players in all of my games now. Sometimes they don't use it because you're right, it is too complicated, but
they can pick it up later.
Yeah,
it will
they can
be
always
fine.
grab it later when they feel like it. Yeah.
It really won't matter.
Yeah. Feats are really well balanced in 5th edition. Like none of them, with the exception of one we're going to talk about in a bit, are really like all that powerful, and so it there's really no downside, I think, to giving them one at level 1.
What about a free feat every time you get an ability score improvement? So for most players, 4th, 8th, 12th, etc.
I'm still for this.
In addition,
I'm still for this. I do see this becoming potentially too complicated and too powerful. But
if you're
I would
ending
still
your campaign at 10th level, 3 feats, that's not too complicated. But if you're going farther, maybe.
I would allow it. I can see the argument against it, but I still think this is probably fine.
Make this one short and sweet. Link in the description. What about taking feats and cutting them in half for more modularity? Half feats.
We've talked about this. Matt and I, or mostly Matt, in fact, all Matt, wrote up a document on this. I like it. I think it's a good idea. It suffers from
Link
the same...
in the show notes, updated with all of the Tasha's feats.
It suffers from the same problems as the other two house rules, which is that it's kind of complicated. Balance-wise, I think they're terrific, and there's nothing wrong with them.
Keeping on things we've already talked about, but one of our other favorite house rules is reversing inspiration. Let players claim it. We have also on our homebrew page a document on how you might do that, because otherwise you as the dungeon master might forget to give out inspiration. There are a million house rules written for inspiration, which tells me it's a poorly written thing with a kernel of goodness at the
There's
middle.
a good idea that's not well implemented. One suggestion from one of our listeners at Walla Walla Jesus is that you can collect instances of inspiration, but can only use one per long rest. I like this. I also like. I think inspiration
Or
works a
just
little bit
give
better.
everyone one inspiration per long rest.
I like inspiration better in person because I give out like a shiny dice and then they can just like put it in front of their character sheet. And then I'm like, if they need advantage on something, they just grab it and roll it. It still works virtually, but I like this rule. Do something with inspiration, make it better. Because right now it just kind of,
the most controversial spell.
Ooh, yes, this is a good one.
In 5th edition. Counterspell. Lets you as a
Counterspell.
reaction nullify a lower level spell or have a chance to nullify a higher level spell. People fucking hate Counterspell. Like there's so much vitriol against Counterspell.
This was shocking to me because I've seen this house ruled all over the place. This comes up a lot, and I've seen it mostly from players who are frustrated, who are like, my DM doesn't allow or has nerfed Counterspell. And this is just kind of shocking to me. I think that Counterspell is pretty well balanced. It can be frustrating as a DM if your players are canceling out your really cool fireball that you were about to throw out, but also, I don't know, if they memorize that spell and they're ready for it, it's also like not super hard to work around. I
love the idea of a wizard's bouncing spells back and forth. That's cool to me.
Wizard duels are cool. Yeah.
Also, if you're a dungeon master
yeah.
and this is a problem, the solution is the same as balancing most of your other encounters, which is add more wizards. Right?
More
if you only
wizards,
have one wizard against a party and they get counterspelled, they're like, well, my monster didn't do anything this turn. Well, yeah, they need 2 lieutenant wizards.
The party just they don't have that many reactions, right? Just give more wizards. This is just so weird to me, and maybe you all can weigh in, but I have seen this multiple places. I do not get nerfing or removing counterspell, but it happens a shocking amount.
I actually saw this today, Rob. People arguing about this, important people, in fact. Should you allow your players to counterspell a counterspell? And
both Matt Mercer and Jeremy
Oh, you saw
Crawford,
this too?
Chris, I sent it to you.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I forgot.
Matt Mercer
I get so many texts from so many important people every day, Rob.
I know you're such a busy guy, Matt. But yeah, Matt Mercer and I think Jeremy Crawford and a bunch of people were talking about. But yeah, the rule is if a rules as written.
Absolutely, you can counterspell a counterspell.
That's right. If somebody's counterspelling, you can stop your spell to counterspell in return. Rules as written, that is fine.
And also, rules as cool, that is badass. I don't know why people are like, that seems weird. No, that's cool.
Yeah, I think that's very cool. I don't think anybody would occur to any of my players that they could do that. And if they were like, can I? I'd be like, yeah, that's cool. Go for it. And plus, it's rules as written, so you don't really have to house rule anything.
Also, if you're house ruling, you can't counterspell a counterspell. You've actually made counterspell way, way worse. So, at least from my perspective, that's maybe not the way to house rule it. What about just other spells, like banning specific spells? But Rob, I went insane today when I saw someone, a well-meaning new DM, write out a post about how they had banned the spell Unseen Servant, a first-level utility spell. But more often I see Dungeon Masters banning high-level spells.
What was their justification?
The player had used it to do useful things.
One of my players, this is funny because one of my players got really excited to take Unseen Servant and then was deeply upset when it couldn't do anything and also couldn't be seen. And I was like, well, it's a ghost. It's literally an unseen servant and it holds things and opens doors. I don't know what you thought it was going to do. So I can't imagine. I mean, you can do useful things with it, but I can't imagine.
You can go open doors unseen. That's super useful. You send it into the next room. You open a rule on another side. The monsters all go, did someone just come in from the other side?
You have it open, obviously trapped things. It's great. You know, it's a great first level spell.
I often see Dungeon Masters banning high level things like Legend Lore, Remove Curse, or Wish. I can see where that comes from. I don't like that house rule at all.
Here's the thing. I believe, and this is an opinion supported by fact and logic, that as a DM, it is your job to roll with the punches and accommodate your players in the system as best as possible. So if there's a spell that's giving you a hard time, I say, buckle up, buddy. Figure it out. I usually you as a DM have all the tools in your arsenal to do something about this. So even if they're remove cursing, legend loring, wishing, just figure it out. You can do it. I had a player.
This is the thing, is at high levels, like, players can deal with things like curses, or if they're like, we want to know something about that guy. They know something about it. Cool. It means the game moves in a different, faster, more exciting way that you can up the stakes.
I had a player who got his hands on one of those instant fortress objects like way too early in the campaign. And then he would throw it out at like the most inconvenient and difficult times where I would have to do math or like figure out like how it would work.
Well, do math, no, but yeah.
No. Or,
that's cool.
Like, okay. Yeah. And I hated it because it was very frustrating and it fucked up all my encounters. But you know what? He loved that instant fortress. And I worked with it. I figured it out. And I feel like that's what you should do as a DM, unless, I guess, I don't know, they are abusing the game or being deliberately annoying and frustrating, but that's an out of game conversation. That's not a house rule conversation.
For me, like, if you want to ban something like Wish, like, you just don't want to play a high level game, which is fine, right? Or you want to play a high level game that isn't actually a high level game, right? I mean, one of the rewards of slogging through 17 levels
is you can then cast Wish.
Reshape reality.
Yeah.
Finding another tier of challenges for players that have that power is part of the fun. But if you want to keep your game where it is, I understand your point. Rob, house rule lightning round. Here we go.
Okay. Here we go.
Common one I see, Dungeon Masters nerfing a specific class feature, like rogues can only sneak attack if they're hidden.
Yeah, I've seen this a lot, and we could probably talk a lot more about this, and maybe someday we will. I am against nerfing or removing any class features, especially also like, race features or something like that, but especially class features. If you must make changes, add, do not remove. I've seen a lot of DMs think for some reason that rogues are overpowered or, barbarians overpowered.
They're wrong.
They're wrong. Just don't do this. All right. What about Great Weapon Mastery and Sharpshooter? These are the feats that allow you to take a -5 and do 10 extra damage.
I see a common house rule, which is to change the penalty to be equal to your proficiency bonus and the bonus to damage be equal to double your proficiency bonus. This does a lot of smoothing. I can understand that this works at some tables. It basically makes these feats be, for most ACs, always the optimal choice, whereas where they are right now, especially at low levels, they're a fun tactical decision for players to turn on to wipe out low-level monsters or low AC monsters. So I don't like this house rule or this fix.
I'll be honest. This fix is deceptive. It sounds like a good fix and a nice way to make these scale, but the math doesn't pan out. Matt's right here.
Here's another really quick one, building on your earlier point. Instead of nerfing specific class features, give some minor buffs to some of the underperforming classes. Wisdom modifier to the key pool for monks, an extra skill for barbarians, extra spells at every low-level spell level for sorcerers based on their subclass's theme. No fatigue for berserker barbarians. Every ranger knows Hunter's Mark for free. I think those are all the common ones. I love all these.
Yeah, these are all good. And for a long time, you couldn't really, well, you could, but it was hard to play a ranger, especially without like some adjustment to the rules because they needed the help. So, don't overdo it, but there's good arguments to be made for small quality of life tweaks. And Tasha's had a lot of this, but I don't think Tasha went quite far.
Tasha's went a long way to doing all these.
Yeah.
All right. What's another quick one, Rob?
Oh, one of my favorite ones, and this is controversial, but I really like it. And I've started using it in all my games, is that drinking a potion is a bonus action. Otherwise your players are not going to drink potions, or they will feel, I wasted a whole turn getting 3 hit points from my potion of healing. I can see the arguments against this, but a lot of classes don't have anything good to do with their bonus actions. And again, otherwise they're not going to drink potions, and you want them to drink potions.
My only 2 cents here is some classes get a lot more power out of their bonus actions, so it may hurt them a little bit, but ultimately it's not a big deal. I would only add to the rule, just to be more precise, you can drink a potion as an action or a bonus action.
Or a bonus action.
Your choice.
That's right. That's right. That's more correct.
Here's another one, and this is, I think, the only nerf that I like for 5th edition D&D, which is nerfing the lucky feat. It's routinely considered the most powerful feat. 3 rerolls, a long rest is a fucking lot.
It's a lot. The thing is that 1 reroll per long rest is worth a feat. It's already plenty good. You don't need 3. I'm generally against wanton nerfing, but I think this is justified.
Give us another one, Rob.
This is a small one. This is one of my favorites. It's just borrow the minion rules from 4th edition. Just have there be little baddies with 1 hit point that go down after a single hit. This was one of my favorite parts of 4th edition. I think it's great.
I love these.
Adds a really good tool to the DM's toolkit. It's just easy to balance, makes combats fun and exciting. I like this. I'm a big fan of this rule. Borrow minions wholesale from 4th edition.
That's a great Dungeon Master House rule. Here's one back on the player side. Players get an extra tool or language proficiency for every point of intelligence bonus, or you can make it even more powerful and an extra skill tool or language proficiency for intelligence bonuses, or maybe something like an extra language proficiency for every charisma bonus. Charisma intelligence, maybe the less powerful ability scores, especially for non-wizards. Give them some,
I agree.
some reasons to invest.
Yeah, I'm an intelligence stan. I always have been. I like to play smart characters, but it doesn't get you a lot in 5th edition. And I don't know if I fully thought this out, and so maybe there's something I'm overlooking, but I love the idea of going back to getting an extra skill point for every point of ability modifier you have in intelligence. I think this is a good change. Probably there's something I'm not thinking about, but I think it's good. I would say.
Do you want to hear a really topical joke?
Yes.
Do you want to know why Ben Roethlisberger of the Pittsburgh Steelers is the dumbest quarterback in the NFL?
Why is that, Matt?
Because he has 4 int in the last game against the Cleveland Browns. 4 int.
How many of our listeners do you think are going to be in the cross section to get this particular joke, Matt? All right.
None.
Speaking of
0.
Time to wrap it up. I think that's a pretty
okay. Here we go.
Lightning
round of extra things that I like. Here we go. Are you ready for them?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Tool proficiency in rope.
I love this one. Here's one. Crits do max damage plus an extra dice, just so that you are more likely to do big numbers rather than roll two small ones.
It's very unlikely that you'll do less damage on a critical than a regular roll, but when it happens, it feels bad. What about this one, Rob? Death saving throws are rolled in secret either by the player or dungeon master.
I like this one. It has consequences that we should talk about in greater detail, but I think this adds tension to the game. Just make sure that your players are on board with it before you institute this rule. Here's one that I hadn't thought about. Longswords can be finesse weapons. That's
I don't like it.
I like it. I don't see anything wrong with it.
Well, I'm glad we've ended on a disagreement.
Reskin a rapier. I don't know. It's fine. It doesn't hurt anybody. But yeah,
it hurts me, Rob. Strength is underappreciated.
Strength is underappreciated. That's true. Bring back 1.5 damage to strength hits. Anyway, sorry. Final thoughts, Matt?
Hey, it's whatever works at your table. I think the important thing with house rules is you make them part of your social contract. That doesn't necessarily mean at session 0, though maybe that's preferable. But if you want to introduce your house rule, try and get the buy-in of your players, right? Just to make sure everyone's feeling good, on the same page, right? That you work through it together. No one likes arbitrary changes. I mean, and if you do that, you can't really go wrong.
The biggest complaint that we saw from people was that when their DMs would say, this thing is just not allowed. So if you must do that, make sure you explain why or discuss it with your players. But otherwise, I think you're smooth sailing.
Right. Remember, you're the dungeon master, but, you want people to have fun playing your game. So make sure the rule changes are, cool with your players, right?
Good.
Talk it out with them.
Okay, thanks to everybody who wrote in and provided us with suggestions. They were very helpful. If there was something that we didn't get to, definitely write us at dmofnone@gmail.com or add us on Twitter at dmofnone.
And thanks for listening, everyone. If you like the show, drop in those 5 stars. Leave us a quick rating. We'd appreciate it.
And remember that you're important. You're very special. We love you. And keep rolling them dice.